Hello, Year 11. So, English revision. So you've got English language to sit. You can see there on the screen that you've got component 1 and component 2 in English language to revise for. And within those components, you can see component 1 is 1 hour, 45 minutes. And I'm not going to read what's on the screen because you can see that yourself. And component 2, again, I'm not going to read what's on the screen, but it's a 2-hour exam. But what you do need to remember for component 2 is you've got 2 pieces of writing to write, and you must make sure you write for both of them. So how do we revise for English? Well, you read an extract from fictional writing at least 3 times a week. Why? To pick up speed, to be able to read at a quicker pace and assimilate the information that's in the text. If you can do this, you'll save vital time for actually writing your answer down. So you're going to get some bookmarks from your teacher. You had them in year 10, but you've probably forgot about them. So we'll reissue them. We'll put them on Google Classrooms. And with these, they've got the question stems that you need to think about when you're reading actively, which means looking for clues as you're reading through the text. You should be reading, thinking about how does this character come across like this? What is it that they're using? What words and phrases tell me that she's like this or he's like that? And how are they making me hook in? How are they creating the excitement of the drama? How's it unfolding? How are they changing? How are they developing? And the writer will be putting hooks into place to keep you reading, and you've got to spot those and talk about what's going on behind them. What does it allow you to see? So this is active critical reading, as you can see here. But then what you also need to do to get into the 7, 8 and 9 grade, you need to make sure that you're thinking about the subtle meaning. So you've got to say the obvious. You know, you're not making things up that aren't there. But if there's some similes or metaphors or personification, it might be being used and generally is being used to allow you to see something in the text that's not as obvious. And those of you who are able readers will be able to spot those, and that's how you'll pick up that top mark. But whilst you're doing that, you've got to keep your eye on the whole text. You can't just look at that standalone. You've got to make sure that you're thinking about how does that fit into the whole storyline that's going on in front of you. And the next part of that is writing a story of component 1. And you're going to get 4 titles. Now, there's a list here, and there's many others. They're not always related to family. But if you're not a writer, you can practice and plan a story that's linked to a family situation, and you can then use it in one of the titles that comes up. You'll be able to tweak it so it fits the title that's there on the day. But what they do want you to do anyway, regardless of any title, is they want you to write about something that's real. So you can't write an Alice in Wonderland sort of story where you drop down a rabbit hole and you shrink and you go through keyholes, because they don't want that. And whether we like it or not, and it grieves me to say this, that you can't write like that, you can't, because they're not going to accept it and give it a good grade, because they've already told us for you to write it with a sense of reality in it. But that doesn't mean it can't be exciting, because sophisticated writing always does have a sense of reality. So even with magic realism at the top end of writing, which is very sophisticated, it's still based on reality, but there's elements of the unreal in it. But it's still sending a message about what life is like. Component 2, then you're going to get non-fiction articles. You're going to get 2. You're going to get one from the 19th century and one from the 21st. And what you've got to be able to do is you've got to think about what is the message in this piece. You look at the topic and you think about how that writer is trying to manipulate you to think about that topic. They will be choosing words and phrases that allow you to see that they're thinking like that, and you've got to be able to spot that. Look for the less obvious at the top grade. You might find that the structure, the top of the piece and the bottom link together, and by the end of the text, they will actually be showing you a different point of view. And you've got to be thinking, why? What are they wanting you to leave that piece of writing thinking? It's non-fiction. It's there to influence society, to think in a certain way. Media is constructed for you to think in a certain way. So that's what you've got to be able to keep your eye on. Obviously, keeping your eye on the question as well. You're thinking about the whole text, and you're thinking about the structure of the text, because they might change their mind a little bit in the middle. And those of you who are aiming for the top marks again, if you notice that there's a change of tone or a change of opinion, you need to make sure you talk about that if the questions are allowing you to discuss that. You'll also get writing in component 2, and you've got to write 2 writing tasks which take 30 minutes, and that's really important that you don't miss one. You'll lose 20 marks, and that will really impact upon your grades. So you've got to make sure that you are prepared for that. You're going to have titles that are in your books already. You had titles when you were in lockdown, and we presented those lessons, or we sent them via video links, and you're going to get more as we go through the year. You must make sure that those titles that you star off and think, I couldn't write about this, you do some research on. There's the internet, there's a television, find out about those topics, because they may come up, and the biggest problem for students is that they come up and they can't write about it. So let's say the environment, and you're not sure about all the issues that are going on in the environment. Now, you haven't got to write about everyone, but you've got to know something about the issues that are out there in the environment for you to be able to write about that topic. And if you don't know about it now, go and find out, because if it comes up in the exam, you'll feel stuck on the day and panicked, and then therefore that could impact on the second piece if it's the first one you see. SPAG is really important. You've got to make sure that you're spelling, punctuating and using grammar correctly. And this is not just for this exam, this is for life. So you can get a job when you're writing applications and you're filling forms in. And so these bits of the exam for me are really important because they're life skills. If you don't know how to use an apostrophe possession, you don't know how to use a complex sentence, go and Google it and watch a YouTube clip on it, because now's the time to make sure you do. You can't just keep using that excuse that I can't. Practice your spelling. If you know that you keep getting a word wrong, make sure you don't. Really keep your mind on it. There is no excuse really, because it's just about being really diligent and really keeping your eye on that. So make sure you put the work in. And then for English literature, you've got these 4 texts. I don't need to read them, they're on the screen, but these are the ones that you will be sitting in 2021 for your Year 11 paper. So what do we do? Well, what you do now is you watch the plays again. The Google link to the Henry V is on the Google area now. You can watch in spectacles. It's there on YouTube, the whole play. There's one that's very good. It's black and white, but it's like the play rather than a film version of it that takes you away from the real play. You just need to know them. If you know what happens where and who's in it and what happens to them, you can't go wrong. And you need to know all of the poems. You need to know what each poem is about, why they wrote it, particularly. And then you need 8 that you know really super well, that you've learned some quotes from, so that when you're in the exam and you get one that's printed, you can pull on one that's in your head, one of the 8, and it's got many themes that you can link with, and then you pull on the quotes that you know. And we will be practicing that, we'll be talking about that in the lessons to come, but you need to make sure that you know what everyone's context is about, why they're writing it and what message they're trying to get about over to you. And then you can see there, you can make some quiz cards, you need to question yourself, test and answer, read the poems, think about what they mean. And then ultimately what you can do, you can invest in these revision guides. Now, these are available online. We have put lots of resources on Google Classroom, we're putting more on. You've got lit charts login, which you can use for free because we're subscribing to that. So the reality of it is you don't really need these, but they are there if you want to use them as an extra backup and a little bit of support. And then lastly, attend period 7, because we're there for you to help you out and revise this as we go through to the run up to the exams. And then after Christmas, we'll be finished with all of the teaching that we need to do, and we'll be revising all the way. So make sure you're in every lesson, and not just in it, but you're concentrating in it, because that's part of your revision. And that will mean that your English revision can be cut down a little bit. You can concentrate on all the other exams because you're concentrating in the lesson. So best of luck, Year 11. You can absolutely nail this. I really have so much confidence in you. You've just got to put a little bit of work in this last push. So best of luck.